After 4 years, Nobody 2 is finally out. Let's talk about it. So to be honest, I was shocked when I watched the first Nobody movie because who knew that Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul himself, could kick that much ass. But lo and behold, he did, and it was a very fun watch, especially after the COVID drought of movies. It was a really fun action movie, and now, after many years, we are finally back with the sequel, which I overall wasn't really excited for. And the main reason for that is basically because the trailers were really weak. They didn't really offer me too much of what I was looking at in the movie, but still, I went into this movie with, no expectations. I was sort of interested, but at the same time, the trailers didn't do much for me. But after leaving the theater, after watching Nobody 2 today, I thought that it's fun, just like the first movie. But I think it's slightly worse than that first movie. I do like that first one a little bit more, and I do have some issues with this movie. But if you're going in and you want to go watch Nobody 2, you think it's going to be a fun movie like the first one, I feel like you will have a fun time. I really do. It's not that much different, even though they are changing directors with this one. I expected it to be a little bit different, but it really isn't. This one is all about, Bob Odenkirk's character, Hutch. He's basically in the game again, in the action game again, doing things, getting some money for them, kind of like John Wick completing some tasks, and his family's like, where's he at? And then they go on vacation. Then, of course, all hell ensues after that. So this one is a lot better from a plot-wise perspective, I would say. I really did enjoy that he's actually in the game this time. He didn't have to get back in the game like the first one. And Bob Odenkirk, he still does such a great job at kicking ass. I mean, I loved every single scene that he's in. And I think when he's not in the movie, when you don't see him in a scene, the movie does decrease in quality quite a bit because Bob Odenkirk just raises this movie to such a more enjoyable standard than what it is if he wasn't in it. And man, Bob Odenkirk, he's such a cool guy. I gotta say, Better Call Saul, I mean, that's such a huge part of his career. I haven't seen that show, but I've seen him, of course, in Breaking Bad. Now he's doing action. I think he's like 62 years old. Like, he's kicking ass. I mean, he's doing such a great job at it. I mean, his stunt work is really cool. It's awesome to see him putting in all those hours to train for this. It's really cool. I still think he's great in this role, and I think that I would watch him do many more of these movies because they're still really fun, even though they have some issues. I think the first issue that I'm going to talk about is that I think that this one is a little too short, and I maybe say that about the first one. I think it's only because there's really not much development that goes on. It really puts you into the movie, and then it goes super, super quick through the movie to that final big action sequence. And I know people with TikTok attention spans will love that. They'll be like, oh, it's a movie under 90 minutes. I gotta go see it. But I really don't think it has that much, emotional development to make me really care about these characters I want to care about. Like Hutch as a main character, yeah, he's cool. He's kicking some ass. But do I really care about his character? I wouldn't really say that. I don't have that much emotional value with this character. His family, I feel like everyone in the cast in his family does such a great job with their roles, but there's not much written for them. They kind of do something with the characters, especially his son in the beginning of this movie, and I don't think anything really comes from that at the end of this movie. So I felt a little disappointed with that. The John Wick movies, I feel like do such a great job because they have a longer runtime, especially the third one. I mean, the fourth one's almost 3 hours long. These are very short, and I think they mean to make them short because for people with low attention spans, but I feel like that's just a huge issue that it's running into. I will say hiring the same director of The Shadows Trace from last year was a great choice for this movie. I like the direction. I like the increased, action, hand-to-hand combat stuff in this one. If you haven't seen The Shadows Trace, it's on Netflix. A terrific movie. Lots of great hand-to-hand battles, some sword play. It's great. So that kind of lends to my next topic, which is the hand-to-hand combat in this movie is much better than the gunfights. I felt like the gunfights were really unrealistic, and people could have died many other times in this movie. But the hand-to-hand stuff, especially with Bob Odenkirk, was awesome. I mean, I love that. It reminded me of The Shadows Trace. There's a scene on a boat in this movie that was so freaking cool. I really did love that. I just have an issue with the gunfights, especially the last gunfight. It just felt like we were doing the same thing as we did in the first movie, just with, you know, a little bit more of a budget. So that's a small issue. Then another issue is basically the villain. I feel like the villain of this movie was extremely disappointing. There was not much development in that realm. It wasn't a great character. I like the villain in the first one a bit better. So there's some things that happen in this movie that are better than the first movie. Some things that happen in the movie that are worse than the first movie. They're almost on equal levels, but I'd still say I do like the first one a little bit more. So overall, Nobody 2 is another fun action movie to see at the theaters, but I really need the third one to step it up, because if not, it will just turn into a really dull and formulaic franchise, which is something that we don't need in the action genre. Bob Odenkirk and the cast that plays the family are all still really good and provide for the best moments in the movie, but I just found the villain to be extremely boring. The action is also really great, but I'm not a fan of the gunfights, as they don't have much flair to them compared to the awesome hand-to-hand fights that we see in the movie. Nobody 2 gets a 7 out of 10. I hope you all enjoyed my review. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to come back for more reviews, more trailer reactions, and if you also saw Nobody 2, leave your own thoughts down below in the comments. But that's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.